Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Good morning. On behalf of Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead, the City Commission, Manager Fuentes, and staff, welcome to the City Commission meeting of the City of Truth or Consequences. It is now 9 o'clock on June 13th. Before I ask the clerk for a roll call, if you have any electronic device on your person, if you could please put it in quiet mode, that would be greatly appreciated. Madam Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green.
Here.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead. Here. Honorable Kathy Clark.
Here.
Honorable Rolf Fischler.
Here.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. The next item is item number 2, silent meditation. This has not been a good week for TRC. Last couple of weeks, we've lost some wonderful people. And so in our silent meditation, I would ask that you keep in your thoughts and your prayers the family of our former city clerk, Kathleen Terrasas. Commissioner Mike Cortez just passed away 2 days ago. And we have 2 citizens who are in the hospital, Jagger Gustin, and City Clerk, Wastewater Supervisor Arnie Castaneda. Hopefully they will be out of the hospital real quick. I'd like to go down there and bust them out right now, but medicine takes time. So in your thoughts and your prayers, please keep these families and these individuals for silent meditation. Thank you very much. Manager Fuentes, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda is number 4, approval of the agenda. I will stand for a motion.
Mayor, before we approve the agenda, there's 2 items I'd like to change, if we could, please.
Sure.
Consent calendar, if we could pull Impact Fee Advisory Board minutes and the City Commission meeting, number 1 and number 2 City Commission minutes of May 9th, and put them separately.
All right, Commissioner Clark, you want those discussed today and not postponed, just pulled separately?
Just pulled separately. We can discuss them and either approve or not approve.
Sure, no problem. I will stand for a motion for approval of the agenda with Commissioner Clark's request.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second. Second. Second by Commissioner Heschler. Any further discussion or action? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item is comments from the public. If you want to address the commission, please come forward, state your name. Do we have the black box there? Renee? There it is. Thank you, Ms. Dodgebach. Anything you want to be part of the official documentation of this meeting, please put in the black box. Thank you. Ms. Dodgebach, the floor is yours.
Randy Ashbaugh, 1023 Poplar Street, TRC, lifelong resident. I'd just like to tell the commission we're still assembling ordinances and statutes that the city manager has not followed. There's a little bit more legal work there than I thought, but they will be forthcoming. I just wanted to read something that I've been putting in the paper. This is in this week's paper. It says, who is responsible for hiring the city employees? The city manager. Statute 3-14-14 NMSA 1978, Section A, Paragraph 2. The city manager is to employ and discharge all persons engaged in the administration service of the municipality. Why has the city manager not hired workers for the water department? It is completely depleted. There are 10 to 20 running water leaks in this city, wasting tens of thousands of gallons of water a day. Why hasn't well 7, one of the city's best producing water wells, not been repaired for over 6 weeks? To my knowledge, only 3 water wells out of 8 are operable. Why? Why are most of the water tanks half full? I thought in the summertime we kept more water than that. The gauge is right on the side. You can go check them yourself. Why has the city manager not hired workers for the wastewater department? Again, it is completely decimated of personnel. Why are there several... Hello? Here we go.
Okay.
Why are there several pump stations with inoperable testing? Why are there several pump stations with inoperable or missed?
Can you stop?
Yeah. Ms. Noshbaugh, we're going to take a pause here.
He's got 2 minutes left.
Sure, okay.
Okay, we'll try to finish. Do I get 3 more minutes? No.
We'll negotiate down to 2.
I won't get hauled out this time, correct? Why are there several pump stations with inoperable or missing pumps? Why? What are we waiting for? A giant catastrophe in our water and sewer departments? We've already had some big ones. We've had the North Date lift station completely go out, raw sewage running down in front of Denny's towards Cochillo. We lost the line at Clancy Street. We've had so many water leaks, it's not even funny. And, I mean, it's really not funny for the city workers, the water workers. In this hot weather, 105, 104 degrees, absolutely preposterous. We haven't had any new water lines put in years. I'd like this put into the minutes, please. You guys have a very nice day. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lombardo.
Diane Lombardo, Truth or Consequences, and before I get into this, I want everybody to know that I have nothing against Lieutenant Baker or Chief Apodaca or Sabrina. I think they're very good at being cops, and Sabrina is very good at cleaning cages. She has a great work ethic. I have always liked Sabrina. However, that being said, not one of them is qualified to run a shelter. Have you been to the shelter yet? Have you been there? Have you seen it? Are those animals even getting veterinary care? Have they taken the animals in that were outside in the cages, or at least given them something, because the rain is coming, something to protect them from the weather? And windstorms can be just as bad as rain. I mean, they could get conjunctivitis. I've had dogs that had conjunctivitis from wind, from the dust. And you say you love animals. You say, I have 4 dogs. I have a dog. I have a cat. If you don't go there and see the horrible conditions and want to fix them, then you don't love animals. You're only saying that. You love your animals. If you could understand the horror of being cage crazy, and it is a thing, a real thing. Now, I did see on Facebook one person said they saw an ad for kitty cuddlers at the shelter. I have not been able to find that. If that's true, that's great. But they need dog walkers. I understand they're going to put a playground in there, which is great. In the meantime, those dogs are going crazy, and it will make them harder to adopt. And the sign is very misleading about where the shelter actually is. I mean, you see the sign and you think it's the actual armory. It is not, and it's hidden around the side. People look in the armory to find the shelter. And the other thing is, how do you expect to adopt dogs out if you have no evening hours or weekend hours? This shelter is so badly run, and you had a year to set it up. Please have people ask for help. We can help. We are willing to help. We have offered help 1,000,000 times. Ask for help. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the commission?
Hello, good morning. Stanley Rickert, 1705 Cary Street, Truth or Consequences. I'm here to discuss the junkyard next door to me again, to see if you guys can do anything to enforce the codes. Have you gotten that far along? Have you looked at it? Have you checked out what he's doing wrong? How he's running a business over there in a residential area? I know you received a letter, or I received a letter from Jay Rubin, city attorney, and I'm not sure that that takes care of the situation. Anyway, I'm still waiting to see what you're going to do. And I saw Miss Diller over there yesterday. I don't know whether she went over there to enforce anything or just to give him some insight what he maybe needs to do to clean up the act, but it has not happened as much as what it should. It's been 5 months since I've been coming here. Every meeting for 5 months I've been here, right? It's not happening. It needs to be taking place to get it cleaned up. Have him shut down, have him remove the business to a new locale so that this is a, ongoing problem that has not been relieved. It has to be taken care of, and you're the city commissioner. There is no planning and zoning commission anymore. This building inspector that was so-called certified and licensed is not around anymore. At least I don't see him here today. Susan's here, but that's about it, It has to be worked on. It needs to be taken care of. It's not going to last forever over there, and it's just, a sad deal because it's not what I would want to live next to, which I am. You wouldn't want to live next to something like this. The continuous, traffic, the continuous noise, the continuous, junk being brought in, parked there. Trying to get rid of all this junk is going to take a while, and if you don't work on it now, what would it's going to be another year before it gets cleaned up. You know what I mean? So just something to think about, guys. It's it's not legal. It's been violating my rights. I have certain rights that I should have to follow. This other person needs to follow those rights also, or those rules, and get it taken care of. All right. So that's my story for today. Sorry to hear about your passing of legislatures and other folks from the past. It's tough when people pass on. It brings back a lot of sad memories. A lot of good memories too, though. So anyway, have a good day, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Mr. Wicks. Anyone else like to address the commission?
Marilyn Pope, Geronimo Springs Museum. I'm not here to ask for anything. I'm not here to gripe about anything. I'm here to explain something which I already explained to a couple of people with the city. I want to thank you also while I'm here for your helping us with subrecipient funding and helping work through the lodger's tax. This time of year we get sort of like we're over there crying in our beer because we don't have the number of people in that we do the rest of the year, so we get kind of slow. And we're working on some other projects. We're working on a huge Arrowhead pottery new display, which we'll have a big grand opening for. And we have another El Camino Real thing coming up. And of course we have an ad, which I'll talk about the ad in a minute. We have the same ad coming out in northern group of newspapers that will cover Socorro, Belen, Los Lunas, and Rio Rancho that we're thrilled about. We used part of your money to do some new cards. Everybody likes Truth or Consequences, the explanation, so we did a card this year that gives the explanation, and people like to have something that says Truth or Consequences and explains it. The question that's probably asked us most of all when people leave the museum is, do you still have Fiesta? And we do, and so we've got a new card that we're targeting people that come here for conventions and so on. We give it to them when they leave, and it says y'all come back, and it tells when Fiesta is, tells when Art Hop is, other general things that they can contact us about. This was done, Sierra County paid for this a couple years ago, and it's been a really, really nice brochure. It's the museums of Sierra County. If we get people to come and look at the museums, they'll be here several more days and eat in restaurants and stay in our motels. I tried to advertise in the Las Cruces Sun News. Long story short, they close at noon. We don't, I tried to take them a check to Las Cruces. Come to find out, they take payment in Kansas City. One of the things said Los Angeles. It was a mess. Anyway, long story short, we had a wonderful ad in the paper. We have not been yet billed for it. The museum paid for it. We couldn't get it in before the end of the year because they haven't billed us yet. I told them we would not be advertising. We got a number of digital spots. You got credit, said paid for by TRC, lodger's tax, and so on. Anyway, we're not upset. We just wanted to explain that our lodger's tax shows that we didn't spend $1,000. 700 of that dollars we thought we were spending, so we didn't spend 300. The 700 we paid, and you all got a good ad. We got a good ad. As I've said before, we're all in this together. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like? Almost right to the second there. Anyone else like to address the commission? Seeing none, we will move on. Thank you very much. Before we go to the consent calendar, we have response to public comments. Any response from anybody?
Yes.
Manager Fuentes.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, just for the benefit of the public, I know Mr. Ashbaugh has been here in numerous meetings, making similar statements, which is that's his right to do so, and I respect his opinion. But I do want to point out that he is a member of the Public Utility Advisory Board, which is part in charge to look at issues regarding water, wastewater, and other infrastructure issues. It seems that Mr. Ashbaugh is bringing more issues, more questions on the paper at commission meetings than he does at the Public Utility Advisory Board, which is the proper forum to address some of these questions. So if he doesn't we do have a meeting coming up this month. If he doesn't bring some of these questions that he does bring up in the paper or here at the meeting, I will bring them up, Mayor, because I think that is a proper forum to have a good dialogue with the directors of the water, wastewater, solid waste, electric, to address these issues. And I think he'll have some insight on what's going on out on the field as opposed to having this public display. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other commissioner? Mr. Ricker, thank you for your kind words on the loss of past employees and elected officials. Appreciate that. Before we move on to the consent calendar, I would just like to recognize one of the prodigal sons has moved back to town, Carlos Padilla from the Herald newspaper, next to Chuck from the Sentinel. So welcome back. Pleasure to see you again. The next item is number E, consent calendar. I'm looking for a motion for approval of the Public Utility Advisory Board minutes of April 16, 2018. And number 4, the Airport Advisory Board minutes of January 9, 2018. Number 5, the Golf Advisory Board minutes for February 5th and March 7th, 2018. And number 6, accounts payable, May 2018.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent calendar of E3 through 6 as noted.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead, looking for a second.
I'll second it.
I have a second by Commissioner Bucker. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Thank you, it carries unanimously. The next item is E1, City Commission regular minutes of May 9, 2018. Commissioner Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. I asked to have this separate for 2 reasons. First one is, even though I know I can vote for a meeting when I haven't attended, I still am uncomfortable doing so. So I'll follow that protocol that I do for myself. The second reason is there's an ordinance that's on that May 9th meeting that I wasn't part of the discussion with, that I will bring up later when it's on the agenda, and Attorney Rubin I've spoken to about it. So I just wanted to know that I have a question with something that's particularly on the meeting minutes, and so I'm going to just recuse myself from voting on this particular item.
Okay. So then I will stand for motion for approval of the, of E1 item, the City Commission regular minutes of May 9, 2018.
So moved, Mayor.
I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler,
I second that motion.
second by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carries unanimously with one abstention. Number 2, E2, Impact Fee Advisory Board Minutes, April 16, 2018. Commissioner Clark.
Thank you again, Mayor. I have no problem with the fact that these minutes are probably exactly what happened at that particular meeting, but I do have a question. And that question is, Mr. Ashbaugh being on that Impact Fee Advisory Board, and knowing that Mr. Ashbaugh has filed a legal suit regarding impact fees with the city. And so I question, like myself, where when it comes to executive session today, Mayor, that I will be recusing myself. It's a subject that's dealing with hot springs, which is my background and my business. And so I just am putting it out as a question, is it appropriate for Mr. Ashbaugh to be on that board? I don't have an answer for that, but I was kind of wondering if there was a way that we could look into that, Attorney Rubin. One way or the other, what would your comment be on that?
Well, I think first, taking your comments one at a time, I think if you're satisfied that these minutes reflect what happened to me, we could still approve the minutes. And as far as the issue of a possible conflict of interest, we can look into that if the commission desires that I do that. We recently did pass an ordinance, as you know, that we can take a look at and see if that applies to the situation. With respect to litigation, as you know, we are being represented by Mr. Appel, so I may want to confer with him also.
Commissioners? I would say that I would make a recommendation or a motion that we approve those minutes and ask Attorney Rubin to look into the issue of conflict of interest if there is one.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Clark. Looking for a second.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you, Commissioner Clark. The next item is public hearings. The first public hearing is final adoption of ordinance number 693, amending section 8-38 of the municipal code for unlawful carrying of a deadly weapon. Attorney Rubin.
Yes, good morning, everyone. As we have been proceeding with these ordinances, what we're trying to do is bring our code into more harmony with the state statutes, and that's exactly what this is intended to do. We have an old ordinance in the book, carrying concealed deadly weapons, and I'm recommending that we upgrade the ordinance to reflect the state statutes, which would be 30-7-1, 30-7-2, and 30-1-12. So just looking at this, going through the ordinance, it's entitled Unlawful Carrying of a Deadly Weapon. Paragraph A, it says deadly weapon means any, and then there's a long list here of all the different objects which can be considered to be a deadly weapon. And I took that word for word from a state statute 30-1-12, which is the definition of a deadly weapon. Then you have paragraph B. Carrying a deadly weapon means being armed with a deadly weapon by having it on the person or in close proximity thereto, so that the weapon is readily accessible for use. And I took that word for word from state statute also, 30-7-1. So what you can see here is I'm cobbling together the state statutes to come up with one coherent ordinance. What I should have also mentioned when I was giving the definition of a deadly weapon, I did also include a sentence that reads, an ordinary pocket knife is not included within this definition. That's something that we talked about at one of the previous meetings. The chief and I looked at the state's, some of the common laws, cases that have been decided by our courts, and it is permissible for us to make that exception. So that's what we did there. Okay, paragraph C. Unlawful carrying of a deadly weapon consists of carrying a concealed loaded firearm or any other type of deadly weapon anywhere, except in the following cases. And then there are 5 exceptions, and I took those exceptions again directly from state statute. And then paragraph D, nothing in the section shall be construed to prevent the carrying of any unloaded firearm. And again, that's all from state statute. So the bottom line summary is this really just tracks most of the 3 state statutes which I articulated with the addition that I already noted. So at this point, we can go ahead and proceed.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the commission for Attorney Rubin?
Mayor,
Yes.
may I start, since I was the one that pulled this question? And I wasn't here for the May 9th meeting, and I apologize for that. But I do remember that in March, the discussion that we had was to ask Attorney Rubin to look at this, and I believe we talked to the chief also, that the concern was that, you know, we had a pocket knife. In my case, I'm looking at a butcher knife. If I take a butcher knife to the park to cut a watermelon, I'm committing a petty misdemeanor. And I have a little bit of difficulty with that. The slingshots I grew up with, you know, I don't know if there's, like 695, for example, says that it's unlawful for a person to endanger the safety or security of another person or his property by handling or using a firearm or other deadly weapon in a negligent manner. And I think that was the word that we were trying to put across in Ordinance 693 was, can we put intent in there? What's the intent of carrying the butcher knife for the watermelon or carrying the butcher knife to hurt somebody? And I did talk with Attorney Rubin this morning about this, and so I was going to ask if he could explain to the commission what he told me so that we can make a decision on maybe whether we want to just leave as is with the state rules and regs, or whether we want to put this into place or any modification. If you wouldn't mind, Attorney Rubin,
Happy
please.
to do so. Well, the key thing here is that I wanted to stay as close to state statutes as possible, because you don't want to have conflicting laws. You don't want to have the state statute saying one thing and the city ordinance saying another. That could be a nightmare for our police department to try to enforce. It could also be a nightmare for the courts. It could also be a nightmare for like the state police and the county when they're having their law enforcement officers doing one thing and we're enforcing something else. The definitions, as I indicated, I realize it's very broad. I gather that, but it comes right from the state statute, and there's actually some case law which interprets the state statute as being constitutional, and these are the correct things to be listed. So that's the answer there. And again, looking at state statute, there's no requirement of showing intent. If you are carrying a deadly weapon, that is a petty misdemeanor, regardless of whether you have any intent or not. So I'm very reluctant to throw an intent requirement into something when the state does not have that. So that's the answer there. Another thing that occurred to me is that if you're able to prove intent, usually it's probably because there's maybe the subject is making some overt use of the actual weapon. And if that happens, then the person could very likely be guilty of assault with a deadly weapon, which would be a felony. So that's covered in that particular state statute. So I like what we have here, what I proposed here, because again, it's an upgrade from our previous ordinance. It tracks state statute. I included the provision there regarding the ordinary pocket knife being excluded. So I'm going to stick with I'm going to stick with my recommendation. Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you for bringing this to my attention, Commissioner Clark.
Thank you.
If there are no other further questions,
Can I make a comment there?
Yeah, okay, then we'll let the public chime in.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that, you know, when you have a situation like this, you still have officer discretion. And an officer is going to decide in the field what type of, what danger this weapon represents or presents. Now, if you have a case where you have an officer that may be trying to, maybe has it out for this person, whatever else, then you have a second check and balance, and that's the DA's office. The officer has to bring in charges, but the DA's office has to go ahead and charge that person if he feels that the information is there to do so. So I think there's enough checks and balances in a system like this, especially with this statute. I think we're going to be fine.
Okay, thank you. For ordinance final adoption of 693, we have no opponents, and we have one person that is signed up as a proponent, Marjorie Rickert. Could you please come up, ma'am? We ask you just to state your name for the record, and love to hear what you have to say.
Good morning. My name is Marjorie Rickert, 706 Palo Verde Drive, Truth or Consequences. I did review the state statutes. I'm very conscious of the need to reflect the state statutes. I personally feel from what I have read regarding the ordinance that's proposed that we do adhere to what is required at this point. And yes, you probably would have to debate this in a court of law if there was an issue regarding another type of weapon, such as a knife. But I think that's something that can be taken care of. But on the whole, I think for public safety, for being able to entertain those who visit and those who live here in a venue that they think should be safe, I find that that's a good direction to take. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else signed up, I will close this portion of the public hearing and move on to public hearing number 2, which is final adoption of ordinance number 695, amending section 853 to the municipal code for prohibited use of weapons and firearms. City Attorney Rubin.
Okay. As you point out, this is section 8-53 proposed to adopt prohibited use of weapons and firearms. And I'm glad we were able to get this in front of the commission, because when we had some of our previous discussions regarding our weapons ordinances, we found actually there may be a gap in our ordinances, because I was asked, well, what happens if someone wants to go hunting within the city, or can someone just arbitrarily discharge a firearm? So this is directed to those concerns. So I'll just briefly go through this. Paragraph A reads, it shall be unlawful for any person to, 1, fire or discharge any gun, pistol, rifle, or other firearm of any description within the corporate city limits. 2, discharge any air rifle, air pistol, or BB gun within the corporate city limits. 3, as parent or guardian or other adult person having the care or custody of a child, permit any child under the age of 18 years to violate this section. 4, carry a firearm while under the influence of an intoxicant or narcotic. 5, endanger the safety or security of another person or his property by handling or using a firearm or other deadly weapon in a negligent manner. So those are the 5 prohibitions. Paragraphs B and C give some exceptions regarding, for example, firing ranges. And towards the end, I have my general catch-all, which I like to put in a lot of these weapons ordinance. Paragraph F, which reads, it shall not be a violation of this section for a person to discharge a weapon during a special event when such person has obtained the prior written permission from the city manager or chief of police. So I keep that in there. I'm interested to know, I mentioned this at the previous meeting, I got a large part of the text of this from the city of Las Cruces. They were very helpful, so that's where some of the text came from. So, and the chief was okay with me doing that. Okay, so that's what we have.
Thank you, Attorney Rubin. Any questions from the commission? Hearing none. From the public, we had no opponents, and Ms. Marjorie Rickert signed up to speak as a proponent. If you'd like to come and give us your thoughts, please. Ordinance number 695, prohibited use of weapons and firearms within the city limits of Truth or Consequences.
I think that this ordinance covers sufficiently at this point the need to address those who do not adhere to the other ordinance and that are found in a position where they are discharging a weapon either by a citizen, but I also believe that we need to be prepared to enforce this rigidly as an example, and I think that we need to educate the public more about what is necessary for them to be aware of, in as much as outside the city limits, they probably are discharging their weapons freely, okay? And I think they need to know, if you come into the city, not that it's going to be a Dodge City type of situation on Wyatt Earp, but I think they need to know they can't do that. That's it.
Thank you. Seeing no one else that signed up, I will close that portion of the public hearing. And the last one is an application for a new restaurant beer and wine liquor license with on-premise consumption, only with patio service for liquor license, and right now it's just 0000. Most important thing is the application number 1089436 for the business doing business as Old Brick Cafe, located at 303 Jones Street. Truth or consequences? Drug Treasurer Renee Canton will bring us into some beer and wine, possibly.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. As you can see, you have before you the application for the Old Brick Cafe. Alcohol and Gaming has given their preliminary approval, and the next step would be for the local option district, which is the City of Truth or Consequences, to approve the application. There was a previous business there, Bella Luca, who had beer and wine license as well. And with that, I'll open it up for a public hearing, and if there are any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? Commissioner Clark?
Mayor, City Clerk Canton. The only question I have is that I remember when Bella Luca applied for their license and they had to get an exception because the Baptist church is a little too close, or they're too close to the Baptist church. Am I correct in that?
Evidently, Commissioner Clark, it looks like it's 300 feet is the minimum, and on the application it says 580 feet.
Okay, maybe they've changed the rules and regulations, but I do remember that at least at some point there was a precedent established to give Bella Luca the license. And
I don't know whether it was 500 feet at that point, but now it's 300 and they're okay because it's 580 feet.
Well, that's good, then they've changed it, but I do remember that, we've had that. And
so no waivers requested at this point or needed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. We have no opponents. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We want to hear from everybody, but if you hear someone who spoke before you and you're going to say the same thing, maybe if you stand up and say, my name is and I agree, we can get out of here before dinner tonight. And then we can go to the Old Brick Cafe and maybe have some beer and wine. Come on down. So our first person who signed up to be a proponent is Dean Tull. Dean?
Dean Tull from TRC. I'll make it short and sweet. I hope we go for this and approve Brenda's license, and so we can support our local business.
Thank you, sir. Linda DiMarino.
Good morning, Linda DiMarino, Executive Director of Main Street. As you know, this business is in the downtown. We think this is good for the district and good for the city and good for everyone involved.
Thank you. I hope I pronounced your name right without being disrespectful. Sharon Arndt, A-R-N-D-T?
I'm Sharon Arndt, and I agree with Dean.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Brian Hemp?
Brian Arndt, I agree.
Thank you. Brenda Carr. I would suspect that you're going to be a proponent of this. And Ms. Rickert.
Marjorie Rickert, and I definitely agree.
Yeah. You don't even have to check your guns at the door. No guns allowed. So, seeing no other proponents, I will close this public hearing. And we will move on then to ordinance, resolutions, and zoning. G1, discussion action for approval by the commission of the new liquor license for a restaurant beer and wine liquor license with on-premise consumption only with patio service for liquor license number to be determined, application number 1089436, doing business as Old Brick Cafe, 303 Jones Street. Truth or consequences? We have all heard the support of the community, which is wonderful for our businesses.
I have nothing further to add, we're just requesting approval.
Very good. If there's no questions or more further concerns by the commission, I will stand for a motion for approval of the liquor license.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the new liquor license for the restaurant beer and wine liquor license for the Old Brick Cafe as noted by Mayor Green.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead, second.
I'd like to second that.
A beer or wine drinker, Commissioner Baca would like to second that. We appreciate that. Any further discussion?
Just one comment.
Commissioner Clark.
Brenda, are you crazy? This is a lot of work, you know. All right, good luck.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Let us adjourn to 303 Jones Street and continue the meeting. Thank you, Brenda. We wish you the best of luck. And thank you for stepping up and keeping some of the assets of our buildings occupied for our citizens and for our visitors. As Commissioner Clark mentioned, the restaurant business is not an easy business to make a living in. You know it, we all know it, but we appreciate what you do. And thank you very much. The next item is number 2, discussion action, final adoption of ordinance number 693, amending section 8-38 of the municipal code for unlawful carrying of a deadly weapon. Jay Rubin.
I have nothing further.
Attorney
Maybe
Rubin.
I'll just ask the chief if there's anything else you wish to add from what I said.
No, sir, I agree with what College did.
Okay, so any commission questions, concerns? We've heard them all. I will stand for a motion, please.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for the final adoption of ordinance number 693, amending section 8-38 of the municipal code for unlawful carrying of a deadly weapon, as presented earlier by Jay Reed.
I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler. I will second that motion. Any further discussion?
I'd like to make a comment, Mayor. I want you to know I'm going to vote yes on this one, but it's only because Attorney Rubin assured me that every single part of this ordinance has been established precedent in the court of law in the state of New Mexico. And I do not believe that we, as the city commission, have the right to overturn anything that the state has already established in the courts. I disagree with the use of some of the words, and I'm trusting our chief of police to know that when I cut my watermelon, that he's not going to take me to court. Thank you.
Maybe we can couple 5 pocket knives together to get it to work it up that way. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, can we have roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Wyatt?
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Hessler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Aye.
Honorable Paul Buck?
Yes.
Thank you very much, and Commissioner Clark, thank you, and I appreciate your reservations, and I am quite sure that Attorney Rubin will get the information that you're requesting.
Thank you.
Number 3, G3, discussion action, final adoption of ordinance number 695, adding section 8/53 to the municipal code for prohibited use of weapons and firearms. Attorney Rubin, anything else to add?
I just make my recommendation, we should approve this.
Okay. Commission concerns? Then I will stand for a motion for approval.
Mayor Green, I'd like to make a motion for the final adoption of ordinance number 695, adding section 8-53 to the municipal code for prohibited use of weapons and firearms, as presented earlier by Attorney Jay Rubin.
I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler, second by
I'll second that motion.
a tie between Commissioner Clark and Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. Further discussion? Hearing none, can we have roll call for approval, please?
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Wyatt?
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Hessler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Aye.
Honorable Paul Baca?
Yes.
Thank you. It carries unanimously. The next item is number G4, discussion action ordinance number 696 for publication adding section 4-226 to the municipal code related to the property maintenance code. Attorney Rubin.
Yes, and I did give a summary at the last meeting. The only thing I would just emphasize at this point is that it would be proposed that we would keep in place our current scheme regarding how we proceed with the demolition of a dangerous building, where we would have the notice requirement, where the person who would be affected would have the right to request a hearing in front of the city commission. We go through the batter shell process, so all of that would stay in effect. Aside from that, I think really we just left up the commission for you to have an opportunity to review the code itself. So I guess maybe the best thing for me to do is just to hear what you have to say.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Questions, concerns on the ordinance? We, following Commissioner Clark's request at the last meeting, we were given a copy of the pro forma copy of the code. We've all had a chance to kind of read it, study it, thumb through it. If there are no concerns, I will stand for a motion for publication.
I have some concerns, Mayor.
Commissioner, okay, let's go.
Okay, so I read through this and a couple of times, and I can guarantee you that there's no way that I have the background or the ability to determine loads or wiring or foundations or et cetera, et cetera. And my concern is this: I think it's really unfair to put you in a position, Santa, where you would have to make that determination for somebody if you don't have a construction background or structural engineering background or anything like that. I wouldn't want that onus put on me.
Commissioner Clark, if I may, Attorney Rubin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that since the state has changed the way they're going to operate now, that we would be dealing with through CID, and they would be the ones that would be signing off on a project, not a local staff member. They might work in coordination with them, but the ultimate power would lie with the state.
Well, let me say that the code actually came largely from the state. Now, they had cooperated with other agencies, but actually that's where this code came from. Now, as far as working together with the state, maybe Susanna might be better to address it than I would, as far as how the mechanics are of working, the coordination.
So this would be for our local enforcement, and CID doesn't really have an enforcement division. They do inspections for new build, for things that require construction permits. So if someone's doing a renovation, that's when CID comes out and they get involved with the permitting process. This is for our local maintenance, our zoning enforcement. This is what we would be enforcing. And so while CID requires buildings be built and maintained to these standards, they're involved at the front end, not down the line when you're making a determination about whether or not a building needs to be condemned or, what the state of the property is today.
So Mayor, can I finish? So that was my understanding, is that CID is at the beginning, not at the end. And so that's my concern. And the concern is I don't want us to be opened up for something that, somebody would say, well, you're not qualified to make that determination. Why are you harassing me? Et cetera, et cetera. It could go all sorts of different ways. One of the conversations I had with Attorney Rubin is, for example, when you're purchasing a house and a realtor will suggest, why don't you have an inspector go in and look at the house, somebody who's qualified to determine whether electric's up to code, plumbing's up to code, whether, there's issues with even termites, for example, because there is an issue in here about rodents and et cetera. And that maybe we want to take a look at if we could put into place, if we really were concerned about a building, like if you're driving around and you see something like, oh my gosh, this really does not look right, that we would contract hire, just like realtors do, or people who are going to purchase property. It's like $200 to have a professional go in there and they'll lay out really, truly, it's not up to code electric or whatever it is, so that we've got something to sink our teeth into before we go out and issue a notice that says you've got 10 days or you've got a month to bring it up to code. I'm just thinking that maybe we haven't thought this through enough, that we're covering ourselves in advance. I'm really disappointed about not having the building inspector. I don't know if we could even hire him to come down on a one-time basis to do something like that for us. But I just don't feel comfortable quite yet with us just saying any one of our employees can go out and make this determination. And I really just don't think it's fair to do that to our employees. That's my comment on this. And Attorney Rubin, hop in there with me on this, because we did have a little discussion about this.
And I guess, again, maybe Ms. Diller, I mean, do you have any thoughts on that about, what our qualifications for doing some of these things and how we would enforce the code?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot in here that, kind of hits the reasonable person standard, where you can see fairly clearly things where it talks about attractive nuisance and other similar sorts of descriptors that are more based on, you can look at it, you can see it, that's easily interpretable. But I do see your concerns too about the things where it talks about if, the nominal weight over, starts to overbalance with the load-bearing structure. I mean, I think that is a valid concern in some of how this language is written.
Commissioners, if I may, and unfortunately, as you indicated, because we don't have the ability to hire a building inspector because of the way the state statutes have been changed. So obviously, we're not the only ones dealing with this, or other communities. So to your point, Commissioner Clark, of how are the process going to work when it requires some technical background to make a judgment call on a project? We do have a in-house GB98 who's our facility person, but I don't, that just came to my mind when you were asking that question. But you bring up some good points in regards to how it's all going to work out. And this is new, not just to us, I'm sure to other communities as well. So, I mean, I don't think we are on a time frame on this matter. So I think if maybe we can go back and do a little bit more research and kind of talk to other entities, how they're applying and how they're coordinating that technical side. Are we going to have to hire, to your question, outside expertise to come in? That's going to increase obviously our budget, but or to what level do we apply this code? I mean, it's a code enforcement issue, it's a cleaning up issue, but unfortunately there's some unknowns that we have to figure out. So I think we can definitely do a little bit more research and inquire with other entities that have adopted this code, how you're applying it now, knowing that they don't have a building inspector as well. And maybe that's what you need to hear is what is the practice out there?
How do we do it, protect ourselves and protect staff?
Right.
That is a big concern of
And also protect citizens.
Exactly. So I just think we have a little more
That's some
work
valid
to do.
points. Does anyone else have concerns on this? If not, I'd like to maybe hear a motion that we authorize staff to do some more research and also possibly reach out to some other communities our size, maybe Socorro and stuff like that, see what they're going to do and how they're going to attend to this.
And I'd also like to add, Mayor, that I think a little legal input on this too, like what particular situation could we get ourselves in if we didn't really follow this in a proper fashion and deal with the technical issues that are presented in here.
I think, Commissioner Clark, I'm putting words in your mouth, but I think also I'm hearing something that will protect the city in the court of law. Yeah. That will stand up on the court. I think All right. So, someone wants to make a motion, we will just authorize staff to.
I'll make that motion. I'll make the motion that we authorize staff to do a little more research work into this, from the legal standpoint, from the technical standpoint, and what other municipalities may be doing with respect to this loss of a building inspector position in the city.
I have a motion by Commissioner Clark, second by
that
Mayor
motion.
Pro Tem Whitehead. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you, Susanna. The next item is G5, discussion action resolution number 3517/18, approving the participation in the local government road fund, otherwise known as LGRF, for, quote, installation of sidewalk on north side, curb and gutter, base course a new 2-inch mat of 3/4-inch asphalt for about 360 feet, east 8th from Coleman to Tigney, and 4-inch base course with double pen chip seal, Vita Street from Hyde to the Arroyo for around 954 feet times 30 feet wide, I'm assuming. And our presenter from our streets department is going to be Benny Fuentes. Is Tracy Johnson's not here?
No, Benny will be.
So, Benny, floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, and it's our local road grant fund, the LGRF, and like you said, a couple of streets we're doing. It'll be East 8th from Coleman to Tingley, and it'll be complete new road on that one. It'll have base course, a new 2-inch mat, curb and gutter, and then sidewalk on the north side of that street. And then we're gonna be doing the one on Hyde, from Hyde to Veeder, on Veeder Street. And it'll go all the way up to the Arroyo there, which is, I believe that road is over to the old the sewer plant out there. And that's gonna be a double pan on that one. It is 75-25 split. The state will put up the $64,715, and the city's portion will be $16,179.
Okay, thank you. So the total cost of the project is $64,700. NMDOT is going to put down $48,500, and we're going to put down $16,100. Thank you, Mr. Fuentes. Any questions, concerns? This seems to be a regular, ongoing, we hope continues.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, this project, Benny, just real quick, I know we have a current, it's always, this will be for 17, I'm sorry, it's for the 1819. We currently have one that we're going to be working on at the end of this year, correct? Yes. So it's always about like a year behind. And all of these projects, normally our staff works on them in the winter, kind of for winter time. So this will be in the budget. We do have the match money for this project. But we have one outstanding right now that we'll work on, and then they'll plan for the other. But one thing I do want to point out, Mayor, is I think a lot of, sometimes we oversee the fact that our streets department and our crews are doing a lot of this work in-house, and the tremendous amount of savings that they save the city by doing it in-house. Right now I'm doing some research on some of the downtown streets. I can tell you, there's some sticker shock right now with some of the information we're getting, but it kind of just shows to the value of street department offers the city by doing a lot of this work in-house, complete road work they're doing. So I just wanted to mention that kudos to them and appreciate the work that they do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, concerns? If not, I will stand for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 35-1718, approving the participation in the local government road fund LGRF for installation of sidewalk on the north side, curb and gutter, base course, and new 2-inch mat of 3¼ inch asphalt for about 360 feet, East 8th from Coleman to Tingley, and 4-inch base course with double pin chip seal from Veeder Street, at Veeder Street from Hyde to the Arroyo for around 954 feet by 30 feet, as presented by Benny.
Thank you. Can you say that again, please? You might have missed that. Appreciate that.
I might have missed that.
So I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second. Second by Commissioner Heschler. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, may I have roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead?
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Heschler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Aye.
Honorable Paul Bach?
Yes. Thank you. Carries unanimously. The next item is number 6, discussion action, resolution number 3617/18, budget adjustment. Director of Finance, Ms. Melissa Torres.
Good morning, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, City Manager Fuentes, and City Clerk Canton. The City of Truth or Consequences Finance is respectively requesting the following budget adjustments. General Fund, transfer out $15,000. Municipal Pool Fund, transfer in $15,000. Golf Course, transfer in $30,000. Golf Course Improvement, transfer out $20,000. General Fund, transfer out $10,000. CDBG, transfer in, $10,000. Water, transfer out, $10,000. General fund revenue, increase to $2,000. General fund revenue, increase to $7,000. General fund revenue, increased to $16,000. General fund transfer in, $103,000. Debt service fund, transfer out, $103,000. And so just to kind of go over the summary of all our transfers, as you know, we're getting closer to the end of the fiscal year.
Hold it just a second.
Carlos forgot, right?
Carlos, this is not Santa Fe, sir. This is I'm sorry.
That's okay. So just kind of summarize our transfer budget adjustments. As you guys all are aware, we're getting close to the end of the fiscal year. So a lot of it is to cover the expense or the payroll that we have. CDBG is the closeout of our project. And then as I stated previously, one of the requirements from DFA is if we increase our expenses, we got to increase our revenue too. So I stand for any questions at this time.
Thank you. Questions, concerns?
She knows I'm going to ask.
Do I dare look to the, Commissioner Clark?
Yeah, right.
Questions?
No, just really quick. Talk to me about the overpayment into debt service.
So as we know, our GRT goes into our general fund. And then what happens is our general fund is then distributed to all our debt, is one of the areas we go into. One of the things that we did was we were overpaying our debt services when we were dividing our GRT from our general fund. And so we caught that now that we are cleaning up our books for the end of the fiscal year. And that's where we're putting it back to the originated home.
So we're putting it back into the general fund?
Yes, ma'am.
Because we put too much into the debt service
Yes,
fund,
ma'am.
and we had less payments actually, in fact, that what we had budgeted for the last year. So did we make an error in budget for last year, or was it just something that was weird?
It wasn't an error. It was because our New Mexico Finance Authority takes out the payment before we get CRGRT, and it was our error on finance part that we weren't recognizing that. So we were giving them a little too much in that account on the 403, and Mr. Fuentes caught that because that account was growing so fast. So that's what happened on our side of it. It was an oversight.
So the DFA was capturing more money than they actually needed to capture from us? Or?
No, Mr. Mayor, Mayor, Commissioners. So the NMFA debt payments, the majority of them are intercepted
Right.
Before we get our GRT check. So we were getting our check, and then there's a worksheet that kind of distributes some of those payments out. And I think one of those formulas had that distribution for the same debt service going back to the debt service fund.
So we were paying it twice.
We were double booking it twice.
Yeah.
I hate double dipping.
Yeah. So that's it. It's just a correction, but it's already being captured before we get our check.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for the explanation.
Yes, ma'am.
In the agenda meeting yesterday, Manager Fuentes, who did I say was going to ask the question on that particular item?
Commissioner.
Thank you.
I hate to let you down.
But you forgot to put your glasses on.
I took them off for
I
you.
know.
I did that intentionally.
I feel I'm traveling in very good company, Commissioner Clark. I asked the same question yesterday, so thank you for that. Any further questions on the budget adjustments? If not, I will stand for a motion for approval, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 361718, budget adjustment, as noted by Melissa Torres, our finance director.
I have a motion by...
I'll second that motion.
And a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead, and a very fast second by Commissioner Clark. Further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead?
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Eschler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Aye.
Honorable Paul Baca?
Yes.
Carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item is discussion action. We're under G7, resolution number 3717/18, designating the bank signatures, and Renee Canton, our clerk treasurer, and Melissa Torres, our director of finance.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. So, as you can see from the Commission Action Form, the reorganization is well underway for the accounts receivable to the new accounts receivable supervisor under the Finance Department. And presently, the authorized signers are the mayor, myself, and the deputy clerk. So during our planning meeting, we discussed whether we should also change the signers on the accounts for other financial institutions. And so since that has all been transferred to the finance department, we feel that there's a need to change the signers on the account. So what we're requesting at this time is to change them to the mayor pro tem, finance director, city manager, and for the time being, leave the city clerk on there, because right now in the transition, the mayor and I are still signers on the account. So I don't know if Melissa has anything.
And it's, as City Clerk Canton relayed, that's basically because of our modifications that we're making on the accounts receivable. That'll just give us access on the finance side to ensure that we have access to the bank too, on a first, and not having a middleman.
So this would also allow for, currently when we have any account changes, it's my job to do that. So now it would allow for Melissa to take care of that, and everything would be under finance.
Mr. Mayor, just to point out that currently right now, as my understanding, is the mayor and yourself are the signatories, and that will not change. That will remain the same. So, but it does, as you pointed out, it does authorize the finance, in this case, Ms. Torres, to have the ability to work with the bank if there's any changes that need to be made. But the signatures will remain the same.
Just a question. Yeah, I'm noticing that Mayor Pro Tem has not been on the signature up until this particular point. Is that correct?
No, she's been on it, I believe.
Okay, so just in the top paragraph up here, it just says it's mayor, clerk, treasurer, deputy clerk were on the signatures.
It is, that's correct. But in our finance policies, there's two different sections, and one says the mayor pro tem will be on there, and one says she will not. So,
well, I think it's a good
currently
idea
our signature
that she ought
card
to be
does
on
not
there.
have her.
In case the mayor's not around. I mean, just as the default.
Something happens with turnover, it's nice to have the extra.
Well,
That's the way it
absolutely.
used to be when I first came on board,
So I think that maybe there was an oversight
Mayor
somewhere.
and-
So we're putting Mayor Pro Tem on and we're putting Finance Director on. That makes a lot of
And city
logical
manager.
sense to me. Thank you.
Any further concerns? Hearing none, thank you. I will stand for a motion. Please.
I'll make a
Mayor
motion.
Green, I'd like to move that we approve resolution number 3717/18 designating the bank signatories as presented by Clerk Canton and Melissa Torres, and adding Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead to the list of signatories.
I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler, looking for a second. I will
Second.
Commissioner Clark seconds that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green,
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead,
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Heschler,
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark,
Right.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Yes.
Carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item, moving on, is unfinished business. We're going to have a presentation on an update of the Outlaw Desert Racing event on May 26, 2018, by our airport manager, Mark Leff.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to bring you up to date on the project as a whole, the city involvement in it, and the success of the event. We had asked for approximately $9,000 to get the park into a working order for this event. We were able to probably spend about half that amount in hard costs, as far as electric department, about $3,000, and about $1,650 with an electrician to put in the meter. And then we had labor for road work that needed to get done. So we were probably around $7,000 out of the $9,000 we asked for. So under budget, ahead of schedule. So that's how we like to do things. So the event itself went off without a hitch. There was no incidents. We kept an eye on the Copra residents. I went in there that day and talked to the judge, see if there's any issues. No issues happened. They had a party and enjoyed their party without any dust or any noise disturbing it. We had a follow-up meeting and also met with a ranch owner for future events. 2,300-acre ranch north of Monticello that has volunteered to also participate in a Truth or Consequences racing events in the future. Since the events happened, I've been in contact with WeRock which is a national organization that runs races all over the country, and they've submitted their insurance paperwork to Mr. Rubin for review for future events located here in Truth or Consequences. As far as economic impact to the event, that was stated by the promoters and the local papers reported, they estimated about $40,000 in local economic impact from hotels, food and beverage, as well as fuel, obviously. So right now the track is open. I'm waiting for some contact from the Municipal League on suggestions on signing, so we can put up signage on the track. I went through the track this morning and have gone through it several times since the event, and no dumping has occurred. So our citizens are respecting the asset this community has and haven't been leaving any trash on it. So all in all, the event was successful and economically beneficial. Is there any questions?
Questions, concerns? Commissioner Heschler.
I have a comment and a question.
Okay.
Mr. Bleff, first of all, comment is I visited the site the day of the race on Saturday. It was very well organized. You had good people there. The event was kind of nice to watch, and I think it was a great benefit for this community. So well run and well organized. Thank you. The question is, the future events, how do you envision them to be formatted? In what context will they be running races? Will they be using the track again, or the extended track that you had out there, or will it be confined to the space, or what do you envision for the future?
Well, it's going to be event specific. Like We Rock, they do a lot of deep rock crawling, like big boulders or big obstacles. So they can stay completely enclosed within the city property. Other events may work with Ingram and Ashbaugh again to extend their area. There was no issues with this event. So, but before we move forward with that, we'll need to move forward with special use permitting, where we get public hearings involved to make sure we get the zoning in place. And we would do that once we perhaps have a letter of commitment from We Rock, and we move forward with special use zoning.
Any other questions or concerns? I have one, Mark. From Outlaw Racing's point of view, when you had lessons learned afterwards, after the event, was there anything from them that they wish had taken place that didn't, or any suggestions moving forward?
Not on behalf of the city, that the city misstepped in anything. So they're completely happy with the participation of the local residents as well as the local businesses. Like Bar 2 was a huge help, and they're very appreciative to all their assistance. Maybe on their end, they could market, planning further out, because it was a short turnaround. It was on a competing weekend, Memorial Day weekend. They are planning another event in October, and they would like to do it here. So we're waiting for a letter of intent from them. But as far as I know, they were satisfied and very happy with what transpired.
Excellent, thank you. Other questions, concerns? Thank you very much, and thanks for taking the lead on this and bringing it to your sake. I appreciate it.
The next item is H2, discussion, action, and consideration to propose an ordinance to authorize the operation of recreational off-highway vehicles on maintained streets owned by the City of Truth or Consequences. Our two presenters will be Commissioner Paul Baca and Jared Bartu from Bartu Sand and Gravel.
Paul Baca, Jersey. I contacted a few counties and asked them about the ordinances and some pros and cons. And one of them in particular, Farmington, their response back to me was there was no cons. It was all pros. By the way, I gave you all a copy, sorry. Any trepidations that the residents had prior to legalizing OHV travel on public roads has been erased. Accidents, tickets, road safety concerns, etc. have not increased. Locals can now drive to our outdoor recreation areas and their side-by-sides from their homes, no longer have to trailer them. is it a good thing that our state embraced our cities and counties should be unfounded fears that the states go after tourism, outdoor recreation wholeheartedly? Seemed like there was, went real well anyways. I mean, they weren't any cons, like I said. I mean, so I got a hold of these guys.
Okay, Mr. Bartu.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to present this. We're coming up with a final draft of the ordinance. We've included in your little packet here the one from the county that was just passed about 30 days ago. We have Mr. Dean Tolk here. He's president of Off-Highway New Mexico or whatever, Vehicle Alliance. He's going to give us a PowerPoint. Come on, Dean.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time. These guys roped me into this, so we're going to see if I can't fumble it up too bad. Just a real quick presentation for us. We wanted to just go over a few points about OHVs and street use and kind of dispel a few myths and answer a few questions that we've been hearing from locals. One was what truth consequences could gain from this. Like I said, we're going to dispel a few myths from this. We want to talk about noise, and we want to talk about tires. That's been brought up as some questions. We want to talk about the pros and cons of designated streets or open riding, basically just keeping all streets open and available for people to travel. We want to talk about the laws and enforcements and then answer any questions you might have. What does TRC stand to gain from this? Well, the one thing we all like is the heads and beds thing. And we all like our local restaurants, breweries, gas stations, groceries, small shops to benefit from any recreation and any tourism that happens here. OHVs do bring in a lot of people. If you make a place where they can come and play, they come in. Sometimes the wives like to ride, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they'll go to the spa while the guys are out playing, or vice versa. Local appreciation. A lot of your local voters, I think, will appreciate the use of OHVs for recreation and being able to ride them from their homes into the town and out onto the trails. I'm a local voter. I'd appreciate it. I'd love to be able to do that. So would these guys. Increase local revenue for things like roads, sewers, water lines, sidewalks, parks. Everybody wants this. Everybody wants things improved, more money for all the projects, more events. The Namova Rubber Chicken Ride that we have here every year in October. It's currently only a dual sport ride, but it could be adapted to OHVs in the future. We tried this year in Grants. Unfortunately, with the Forest Service closing down due to fire concerns, we ended up having to cancel our Grants event. So, but we had quite a big following for OHVs to come in and be run with our event. So I think it's gonna pick up. The Outlaw Desert Racing group that took place on Memorial Day, you know, that's what they were. Jeeps, ATVs, UTVs, ROVs. You know, it does, you've seen that this brings people here. And maybe some new events will come. Mark, there you go. Work on it. And we'll all try to. Dispelling a few of the myths. All OHV riders do not tear up the train. Majority of them follow the Tread Lightly initiative, which means respect private property, respect the land, respect natural resources. You do have those very few small amounts of people that can cause problems, but those people will cause problems anyway. This is opening it up to law-abiding citizens. OHV riders do not speed everywhere they go. That's one concern that we've heard from a lot of people. They'll be ripping up and down the roads. Every OHV rider that I've ever met, nobody wants to see a cop in the rearview mirror. Everybody usually tries to follow the law. Once again, that's personal choice and up to them. All OHV riders do not drink and drive. We've heard this from a lot of people. Once again, very small number. Majority of us all try and be responsible and do the best we can. All OHV riders do not trespass and destroy private property. This is the big one that we've heard a lot, that everybody's going to be tearing up private property. It's not. 99.99% of the people who are out there are doing the best they can to make sure they're following the rules and the laws and respecting private property. All OHV riders are everyday people just like you and me. This is a family-friendly sport. Jared takes his kids out on his Razor 4-seater. You know, this is what a lot of families do now. Once you get past the price of the actual bike, it's a very economical sport and family-friendly activity that kids love and everybody enjoys. And it's enjoyed by young and old alike. Well, yeah, you know. Your definition of old can be adjusted to whatever you want, but I'm old to kids, but noise is one of the big concerns we've heard. Off-highway vehicle cannot exceed 96 decibels by law, and that is on racetracks, in the forest, on BLM land, in town, whatever. Rex did a little comparison here looking this up. 95 decibels is about the same amount of noise that you'd get inside of a subway car, near a food processor, belt sander, or power mower. So it gives you a rough idea of what that kind of limit is. He did this study on the traffic at Rock Canyon. Normal traffic was 50 to 61 dBs, and the peak was 73 dBs. So quite a bit quieter, you know. OHVs that were tested, he tested these different ones, and there's different dB levels for the different throttle levels. The most on that was a Arctic Cat Wildcat at full throttle was 73 dBs. So I mean, it's quieter than being standing on the subway, or it's basically about the same noise as normal traffic on the streets. Many OHV enthusiasts want to enjoy our public lands and view wildlife. That's what a lot of people do this for. So manufacturers have gone above and beyond to make the machines quieter over the years. One of the questions we had was tires. People have been worried about using the tires on the city streets. The most common tire out there is a Maxxis Bighorn on these big OHVs. These tires don't really have any DOT ratings on them, but they are designed to be used in harsh environments, take the brute force that these things can take from jumping, riding. I mean, some of these things can do 80 miles an hour, so these tires are designed to take that kind of abuse. No other state really requires, that we found, requires approval of a DOT tire to use on the city streets, because most of these inside the city limits, they're not going to be able to get over 35 miles an hour anyway, by law, because of the speed limits. If people are forced into buying DOT tires just for this, they won't come. You know, you're going to have one town in the middle of all these different areas in Utah, Colorado, Arizona, where these are street legal, that don't require this. So on top of that, these tires just do not last very long whenever you're running them on the street. So most people are not going to want to run them on the street any more than they have to save these tires, because as I put down there, the tires are anywhere from $100 to $170 a piece. I mean, these things cost as much as car tires. So people do not want to use that, but they want the better tire for off-road use, because the car and truck tires just can't handle the abuse. You know, if you get it into any rocks running up our washes or anything like that going across the river, you're just going to tear standard tires apart. Designated streets. Silverton, Colorado has designated streets, and only certain ones, and Charlie can attest to this. He spoke to the sheriff there, and the sheriff said so far a lot of people have got it, but a lot of people haven't, and it's turned into an enforcement nightmare for him. He's constantly having to go chase people down that, you know, are just riding to their house, but their house isn't on a designated street. So he said it's just, he's constantly dealing with it, and it's taking up all of his time to deal with real issues. Lake City, Colorado, on the other side of the hill, doesn't have this problem. They have all open streets. The police there are allowed to focus on more important issues and deal with real problems and enforcement if somebody does break the rule. Laws and enforcement. OHVs will still have to follow the same traffic laws as cars do. The Uniform Traffic Code is all the same, and Chief Papadakis can attest to this. They'll still have to have a driver's license and insurance. They'll still have to obey the speed limit. They'll still have to give right-of-way to pedestrians. The police can and will pull anyone over for acting reckless or driving like an idiot, and they rightly should. OHVs will have to comply with the 96 dB or less requirement. They will not be allowed on Broadway, Main, Date, or 3rd Street, or any state highway as the law currently stands, because state law states that these things cannot be on any state highway. So as the law currently stands, we do not have to worry about that. They will be allowed to cross these streets going to different areas. Our hopes is that eventually we can work on some of this and maybe get it to where they could go on Date or Main or something. The other thing that I would like to see is where people could ride out to Winston, because a lot of people do like to ride out there, and it's, if they so choose. Bottom line is they'll have to follow the law no matter what. If you want a copy of the current law that Game and Fish has come up with, you've got a copy of it in your packets, but if anybody else would like to it, there's the address and a QR code to scan to it. Economic impact of this. In Colorado, motor recreational enthusiasts spent more than $602 million while taking trips during the 12-13 season, according to the Off-Highway Vehicle Coalition of Colorado. That's a huge amount of money. Motorized recreation in Colorado is directly or indirectly responsible for almost 9,000 jobs and $373 million in labor income. These are your dealers, your tire installers, your guy that sells tubes, you know, your gas station, everything. An analysis by Ohio University conducted on OHV recreation and tourism in southern Ohio generated $1.3 million in direct spending and $656,000 in labor income, creating 26 full-time jobs in 2008. So that gives you an idea from 2008 to 2013. Granted, it's not the same state, but it's a huge difference, and it shows a little bit of the potential growth in this. Western Governors Association found in 2012 outdoor recreation accounted for $646 billion in total spending, supporting more than 6 million jobs, and that's, of course, across 22 governors. I've got all this data courtesy of the AMA. It's on their website. You're free to look up. Economic impact. The Namova Rubber Chicken Ride in 2017, according to our surveys of participants, injected approximately $40,000 in the local economy. The Outlaw Desert Race, we just heard from Mark, same thing, $40,000. Just 2 events, that was $80,000 worth into the town. That's nothing to complain about. I mean, that's all good. And as far as I know, I don't think we've had any complaints from it. Any complaints to you?
No, sir.
I mean, everybody's following the rules, everybody's trying to behave, everybody's having a good time. Any questions from anyone?
Thank you.
Yes.
Dean, just can we go back to the decibels? Scroll back a little bit.
Sure.
The dB ratings.
Mm-hmm.
So, my understanding is that, like, the highest somewhere around 94, 96, that was an issue that California was having when they were considering having off-road vehicles on their roads. Are you familiar with that? It was a while back.
They had talked about it, but from everything that I've read and looked up, California never did allow that.
They were looking into it, and I think they were concerned that it was going to get up around the 94, 96 area, and what you're trying to show me here, I'm just pointing this out so you can explain it to me a little bit better. It looks like the idle 25, 35 of full throttle don't even get into the 90s.
Not on any standard stock exhaust system on these. Now, if you put an aftermarket exhaust on a lot of these bikes, they can get close to the 96, but they are not allowed to exceed that. And it's actually, I found out through my research, it was illegal to sell a bike that has one that knowingly exceeds this.
Exceeds the 73 or the 90?
No, the 96.
The 96.
Actually, there's a provision in that law that if we do modify the exhaust illegally and then sell it to the next person, it's a $200 fine. So everyone refrains from that, and manufacturers can't even produce one that goes over that. And a Harley-Davidson with straight pipes is clocking around 110, and there's 10 of those riding around town right now. So these are well under that.
Jared, that was the next question. That's what I was going to. If you had to put one of these guys up against a Harley, and they're pretty obnoxious in my opinion anyway, but if they're at 110 and you're running half of that, so that gives us kind of an idea of what the noise would be. Chief, there was something that you said when we were talking about this at the last meeting about the tires.
And we had that discussion. He said that that was more of an urban legend, that they're unstable on the pavement. I guess they got newer tires that are more stable, the vehicles themselves are more stable. But not to mention the good point he brought up, unless it's not posted, every speed limit in town is 25 miles an hour. If it's not posted, you can go up to 35, and that's well within a safe speed of any of the tires.
And it keeps that decibel rating down, so you're not going to be going full throttle down through a residential neighborhood. So the other thing that I wanted to point out that came to my mind, and I'm not really fond of this whole concept, you know that, Commissioner Baca, but I still think it's worth, looking into and seeing if everybody else likes it, then who cares what Commissioner Clark thinks. But one thing I really do like that I saw in here is the requirement for everybody to wear a helmet.
There's actually, based off of the New Mexico Game and Fish regulations, that is not accurate. Not everyone has to. It's,
but it says on
well,
this thing that
it's the same as a motorcycle. If you're under 18, you have to
if you're under 18,
correct,
you have to have a helmet. So it's not really clear here.
No, and your ordinance isn't drafted yet.
No, we know
everyone's
that.
got loosely, and we're basing, some county and different ones, and we're taking the newest version. They started this in 16, and they made adjustments in 17. Well, original ordinances were based off the first one, so we're fine-tuning it, but that's another burden like a DOT tire. It's, $100 helmets for everyone in the ride, and adults don't want to do that. So they're going to go somewhere else, 150, 200. I know he's got a $600 helmet, yeah, $500, $600. It's just, another burden, and for what? They've got,
roll cages, seat
roll
belts.
cages, and you can get on a Harley and ride without one, so, if you're over 18.
So Chief, you'd work with them to determine what you're comfortable with,
Yes,
and as
ma'am.
far as what a OHV could have when it's on your roads in the city, and how you would feel safe with them or not safe with it.
Yes, ma'am, and we did have a meeting last week and went over my concerns, and they educated me on some of the newer stuff that is coming out. And also just for FYI, that copy of the local ordinance, there is a mandatory use of protective helmet, does specify that under 18 must wear it.
Okay.
So it's in our law as it is.
Thanks, Chief. Thank you.
Other
And
questions, concerns?
one more thing real quick. One thing you'll notice about a lot of us, OHV riders in general, we are very self-policing. If anybody is acting like an idiot, usually they have to deal with one of us first, before the police ever find out about it. So, I mean, we're a very self-policing organization. We take care of our own, and if we see somebody riding dangerously, we will usually, hey, knock it off, and handle it. But if we do see somebody doing something illegally, we will call the cops and let them know.
Yeah, well, it only takes one to kind of ruin a reputation, so we'd like to have that not happen right off the bat. We want it to happen down the road somewhere.
One
And
out
I
of
wouldn't
100
want
will
Jared
ruin it
Hart,
for
too,
everyone.
telling me what I can and can't do. But, yeah, right? So, no, thank you, guys.
Any other questions? Commissioner Hersler?
Morning, gentlemen. Just a couple of general questions, and I'd like to hear just what your opinions are on some of these. There's a couple of different types of off-road vehicles. You have a side straddle, the ones that you straddle you have the ones that you ride side by side. Are you recommending that both of these be allowed under this ordinance?
Okay, so the law is based off OHMV. That's what it was written by, Game and Fish, referring to side-by-side, which is kind of you sit in with a roll cage and a steering wheel. And then the straddle type with handlebar steering, that's an ATV. And then there's non-street legal dirt bikes, which that's not in here. And then snowmobiles. But to exclude one over the other, I don't think it's fair. Most of them with roll cages are $10,000, $12,000, and $30,000. The ones without, you can buy them for $1,500. The straddle seating and the handlebars, I don't think there's a huge population of those, but there's the occasional rider that just owns that and can afford that. So, for instance, when you invite 7 or 8 or 10 friends from Alamogordo and Albuquerque to come ride here, like I've done myself, and one guy shows up with a four-wheeler, you know, he's going to be falling right in line and following the rules like anyone else. So I think it's unfair to exclude those. That's going to be up to you guys, but we certainly don't want to do that. So.
And they're both included in the state statutes.
Okay. I'm not an advocate for designated streets, but I'm an advocate for recommended methods of roads of travel. How do you guys feel about that? And do you think that we can work something like that out where we decide, where we can kind of recommend through signage or other ways for people to get from point A to point B, so that the whole community isn't affected as much?
Right. So the goal would be to stay at, you know, say the Holiday Inn or the Comfort Inn and make your way to the brewery. So there's going to be some contending with side streets, and we're going to have to pick a path that you guys are comfortable with, and the chief, and where everyone would be happy, maybe the least affected towards residents. Well, now that you have an extra $103,000, we can buy all the signs you want. We can put them on existing posts, right? And we can get them down, you know, Foch or whatever. They're going to have to jump the business loop. They're going to have to jump, you know, perpendicular. It's allowed in here in a safe manner. But we can get there on the back roads. It's just a matter of putting together some kind of map. But don't exclude any of the other ones. But we can put preferred, you know, OHV route or something to that effect. I think it's probably a great idea.
I think there's probably some monies available through grants. I know that everybody that registers these vehicles does pay taxes, and that tax, I think it is administered by state parks to some degree, if I remember right.
Mostly it's been taken by state parks. Game and Fish actually handle that money, and that sticker fund actually goes towards training and education and teaching kids how to ride these things safely, stuff like that. That fund, up until this year, was rated for $500,000 every year for the last 5-6 years. So it was actually down to, I think it was $28,000. That was all that was left, and the state parks are trying to take that. We did get that shot down this year, so that fund is building back up. I'm not 100% sure that can be used for signage. It's mainly for training and yeah, I don't believe it can.
No, it can't. If you have to submit by April of every year for that money, and you can ask for whatever, as long as it has something to do with OHVs, you can get it. Okay. If they give it to you.
Right. If they have it.
What I recall about that particular aspect of it is that there weren't enough requests for them to satisfy or to send the money out, and so they absorbed it themselves and figured out that they're going to use it for whether they want to use it for. So if we make the request, then perhaps there's an opportunity for that money.
One thing I want to bring up real quick, designate or suggested routes would be an okay way of doing this, but one thing you have to keep in mind too is the more traffic you put, say they want to get from that end of town to down here, they have to use Foch, let's just say Foch. The more traffic you put on Foch, the more that you could have complaints from locals. You know, it's the same thing with Forest. The more they push us down in the small area, the more people that are in that area. So suggested routes would be okay. We can put that on the website, on the city's website. I think that would be great if that's what you guys so choose. But you'd want to keep it to where people can use other routes, because you want to get people that live in homes around here that want to ride their ATV or UTV downtown or across the river during the winter or whatever they want to do. You don't want them lined up like Silverton where, you know, Mr. Apodaca's chasing everybody, just because they're going to their house. That's just gonna make the citizens mad.
Sure.
In my book. It would make me mad.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have one just out of curiosity, do you have a ballpark idea of how many people in our community actually own one of these vehicles? I mean, are we looking at 100, are we looking at 1,000, are we looking at 50? I mean,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we personally own 3.
Yeah, I think
Sharon
it's well under 1,000 is, and 4 of them can ride in one vehicle, so it's kind of like, vehicles at a home. You may have a couple, but you're only driving one at a time. It's well under 1,000. If I'd guess 100 to 200, is that correct, maybe?
do you think that all 200 would be put out onto the streets in any one given day?
Probably at the beginning, but once the Venus wears off, like somebody said, you'll see one here and there.
They reiterated, so there's a couple times in Elephant Butte where they have a rally or a poker run, so to speak, and there was 107 of them at one time, like I said, going from the VFW to the RV park, and then they pay an entry fee, and then they go through the desert and Big Circle through Cochillo Dam and around back to Elephant Butte, and they were welcomed and stopped at the VFW, turned their cards in. So yeah, in that case, but those were a lot of imports. I mean, I met guys from everywhere, and it was a special event. It happens twice a year. So I don't think you'll have them all at once. Like he said, the newness is the key. Farmington reiterated that. He said, the first 60, 90 days it was great, and it was new and exciting, and there was people riding them to Sonic, and then after that, you see one a week now. Not a big deal. Same thing with Alamogordo. Otero County said the same thing. So we just have to get past, the new stage, and keep in mind, this is just a small fraction of roads. Other than getting to the brewery, nobody really wants to be.
The police department's going to be sitting at the brewery
Right.
waiting for you guys.
Well, I mean, of course they're going to have their.
He brings up the brewery because it's one of the
It's
funnest
the
places
hot.
in town.
It's
a hot
the
spot in town.
busiest spot. It's kind of neat to see. There's cars everywhere. I haven't even really been there
Well,
but
Brenda's
twice
place
ever.
is
But
going to be there next, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
So-
exactly, they go to Brenda's place to eat, and they want to, they go out in the afternoon, come back, and want to have a cool drink.
like we were telling the county, the goal is to get to the Forest Service and the BLM and the Plomas Gap and the Mud Canyon and all these places. It's just a means to get there. We have to cross these roads. And the one thing that I keep hearing and I see in emails about is private property. You guys just passed an ordinance 60 days ago, and it was private property protection. And if you give us the right to drive on a paved street where we won't tear anything up, we don't have to jump through back alleys and power line roads across private property, making people angry to try to get across town, as opposed to, let me do it the legal way and get there as fast as I can, instead of, the other day I went 12 miles to get to Elephant Butte.
Jared,
what I mean?
you just made a really good point.
Yeah.
It's a really good point. Probably one of the best ones I've heard. Seriously. That was a really good point. Thank you.
At the same time, they're going to stay at some of our hotels, like McDonald's and wherever else
One more comment.
Go ahead, of course.
A final comment is that if we do want to craft an ordinance like this, I would recommend that we designate some parking in the downtown area, since we can't park these things on any state highway or operate on a highway. Perhaps if we can designate somehow some parking for ATVs in the downtown area, so that these folks can come down and park and then visit our shops and do whatever they want to do.
Well, and the provision on the NMDOT roads, being that the business loop is in that, it says in extreme conditions where there's no other route, you can run down the utmost right-hand side of the shoulder of the road and then cross perpendicular. So that's more like an enforcement, is if someone did cross to get to the brewery and parked in front of the brewery on the curb line, theoretically that's not illegal at that point, unless you guys wanted to prosecute and get outlandish. But I don't think even that's an issue. But as far as, parking area, I don't know what you have to offer, but that'd be great. Maybe by your new downtown park we just did. There you go. Right?
Well, like Jared said, that is an enforcement issue. As long, my take is on it, as long as people are acting responsibly, stopping, looking both ways, using signals, if they go one block and park on the street to actually go somewhere right there. Now, if they're running down the whole street, yeah, you got to deal with that. But, if they're going to stop at one on that block, is that the end of the world? They're trying to be responsible. People, what it's doing is just trying to make people that really don't have any other way to get somewhere, just make us legal.
Well, Dean, you
Make-
can park
make it
on the
work.
perpendicular street, you don't need to park on Broadway,
Right.
so you just go around the corner,
Around
so
the
you
corner.
don't even have to address the New Mexico DOT issue on Broadway and Main, just avoid it, just cross
Yeah.
it and get off of it.
Well, and that's the thing, people will normally try and do something like that. You may have one or two that won't.
Or don't know.
Or we may, that don't know, exactly. One thing you have to keep in mind too on a lot of these things, like Jared brought up, these things are quite expensive. They can be very expensive. There was a guy at the polo run last year in Elton Butte, had a Can-Am Maverick there, and I had to talk to him. His wife said, yeah, he's got about $100,000 into it. It was fully decked out. So you may have somebody going, I'm not parking my $100,000 UTV on the side of the street. I'm parking it in the front where I can see it. Just bringing that out there so you're aware.
Talk to the chief about that.
You don't want to stolen. Yeah, you want to track down $100,000 Can-Am.
But with the increase in municipalities and, all people authorizing these now, there's increased pressure on the state highway department to authorize these. So, that's another domino to fall, I think, in time, and I think that'll come, which will take a lot of pressure off highways going through towns. So.
Yeah, and if you look at Arizona's rule, they're allowed pretty much everywhere.
Everywhere.
On the interstate.
And Utah.
On the interstate. I worked with a guy that used to ride a Banshee to work. Right. I think we do 100.
All right, I just have two quick questions, and I thank you for the research, Commissioner Baca, and surrounding yourself with knowledgeable people. We appreciate that. Two questions. One is a follow-up on Commissioner Clark's question about the muffler and the noise and the decibel rating. So our city limits have a speed limit, our streets 25 miles an hour. Is there any way that you can mess with a muffler, because you like large, loud sounds, that even at 25 miles an hour, a vehicle could hit that 96 decibel mark?
Absolutely.
I mean, how much, I've gotten 7 to 8 phone calls about this. Mostly people are in favor of it. The big thing is we are an older community. We have older people. Sounds scare them at nighttime, even during the day. And so the noise seemed to be a very, very, very big issue. I just wanted to put that out there.
Right, no, and to reiterate, we had that meeting last week with the chief, and he said you've had a noise ordinance since the 70s anyways.
Okay.
So the protection was always there. It's reiterated in the bill, and it will be stated again, but anything can be possible, as far as gutting a muffler, and it's going to be such a nuisance, but most of these people want to listen to their stereo, and they want to go hunting with them, so they've been toning them down, like he said.
Okay.
It's just not the case. That's the one bad apple. We have to expect the best from our citizens, right? I don't think it's an issue.
And in the statutes, it's a $200 fine.
Okay. And my other question is, in your professional combined experiences, I live up on Foch somewhere. I don't, but let's pretend I do Foch and Ninth or something like that. I got to run down to Bullocks. I need some stuff. Am I going to take my off-road vehicle, or am I going to take my F-150 that's sitting in the driveway? So I guess my question is, how much is this going to be used as domestic transportation within our city? Or to Jared's point, I want to get from here to get out to open land. I don't want to have to trailer. I'd much rather take my vehicle and drive it there. So have you done any research, like in Farmington and Alamogordo and other, how much is used as basic transportation to replace your truck or your car, and how much is just, I want to get out into the country?
So in Arizona, I can answer this, is that when you register them, you have 3 specific choices. One is 100% off-road, which is a small registration, and then there's like a 51, 49% on or off you can pick, and there's another one that's 100% on-road. 100% off-road requires a little bit more registration and definitely insurance. They actually make sure it ties to your code, if you will, or your license plate number. But those people do ride them to work and to Sonic and all over. It's commonplace because they're very fuel efficient, and gas prices are going up again. So that's going to probably be the case. I would like to use mine to go a couple places, but it's like a motorcycle. It's a fair weather deal. 110 degrees not appealing, and 40's not appealing. So I can't answer that. It's a good question, but
I think at first, you're gonna have that newness factor, and you're gonna have a lot of people, not a lot of people, maybe 100 or so, using them for a little while as a transportation, because it's new, it's neat, it's something different. You know, it breaks up the boring. You're not, you know, say you just say as a hypothetical, this was passed this week. You're not gonna have that many people out running around on that, you know, more than one day, probably. I'm not gonna be on mine this week, it's too hot. So, like Jared said, you're gonna have most people going out trying to hit their...
Excuse me,
Well,
can we just hold the conversation down? Thank you, I appreciate that.
So let me add my personal, okay? I ride it, Elephant Butte, I ride it to the gas station. I think I've ridden it to breakfast at the Legion twice. I'm not gonna ride it in town hardly at all. I'd rather jump in the car.
Like we said, the tires are very expensive and they don't last long on the pavement.
And I think what you're gonna have is people maybe that come to visit here with motorhomes that have a trailer with that on it, they don't have another car. This opens up an opportunity for them to go shop and do what they want to do in town, because I've run into that. I have a motorhome. I don't have a fifth wheel that has a place in it for that, so I have a truck, you know, and that. So, for what that's worth.
Especially with no taxi service. Okay, further questions, discussion? Thank you, gentlemen, I appreciate it. Again, Commissioner Baca, thank you for taking the lead on this.
see you at the next commission. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Excuse me. All right, so now discussion. We are at discussion action, consideration to propose an ordinance to authorize operation. We've got Elephant Buttes, we have the counties, we also have a golf ordinance, we can drive a golf car. And I noticed that some of the requirements for the golf carts are more stringent than what I've been reading in here. But I think that we should go the next mile. This is just my personal opinion, and authorize staff and legal, if someone would like to make this motion, to research what we have been given, what Commissioner Baca has been able to get from other communities, see what we have on the books, what is legal, what makes sense for our community, with the understanding that we now are surrounded by a county, within the county, and Elephant Butte that has passed something, and I would hate like heck to have them try to come into TRC, and we have a stone wall there that says we don't want you. But I think it has to be crafted that it protects our citizens, the quality of life, and also helps economic development as well by bringing more people into our community and giving them other aspects to enjoy the assets that we do have. And of course, working with the police department as well. So
I so move on all that you just said.
So we have a long-winded motion by Steve Green, oh, you want to read it? Go ahead. Because maybe there might be some changes. People might not. I talk fast, but she types faster, Commissioner Clark.
Have, move to approve authorizing staff to take what we have on the books for golf carts with other samples to craft an ordinance to protect our citizens and the possibility for economic development.
Okay. It's kind of and to bring it back in a timely fashion, since obviously other communities and the county has already have an ordinance that works. So that's a motion. We have a second. I'll second that. I would have said, I would have said, what? Hello? Any further discussion? Great. Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, and again, gentlemen, thank you for your interest.
And I'll make an observation. It appears that the county ordinance really comes almost directly from the state statute, really. That's my observation. So it's really just a question of how much more restrictive do we want to be with some of the other restrictions. For example, you talk about golf carts, for example. So that's really going to be the question.
Okay, thank you. The next item is under new business, number 1, moving along fast here. Request for approval to pay late invoices for lodger's tax. Is there a Carla Johnson?
I guess I'm Carl Johnson.
In her stead, we have...
You have Charlie Warren from Elephant Butte, Vice President of the Friends of Elephant Butte Lake State Park. And Carla's at a doctor's appointment in Las Cruces right now. This is about our lodger's tax for the Sandcastle, which, by the way, is this weekend at Elephant Butte. To be read. I, Charles Warren, am reading on behalf of Carla Johnson, who has a medical appointment in Las Cruces and could not be here in person. With the understanding that ignorance is no excuse, I, Carla Johnson, as a new board member of the Friends of Elephant Butte Lake State Park, am requesting that an extension be made for the acceptance of the invoice from CD Media, LLC, that I now realize was due May 30th, 2018. The invoice was received on June 5th, 2018, so it could be turned in with the fourth quarterly report due on June 7th, when I believed it to be due. Upon rereading the terms of the contract that was originated by others before I accepted this position in January 2018, I realized that all invoices were due on May 30th. I then contacted Kristen on June 5th by phone to ask what could be done, if anything, to remedy my error. Kristen was very helpful in explaining the procedure of an appearance today before the City Commission meeting to ask for an extension on this. I am also offering an apology for the delay through my ignorance and hoping that it does not cause any inconvenience on the part of the city staff if the invoice is accepted. Thank you. And she finally received the cancel check actually for their work just yesterday. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners? I asked Kristen to do some research, and the award was $700.
Okay. I think there's two things. One, this happens every once in a while, and there hasn't been a single time where we've penalized somebody because of the tardiness. Maybe it's just because we're benevolent. Let's go with that. But the other really difficult thing is, I think, in your case, is that your event is after the deadline date, and in that June period, and having done, the marketing co-op grants with the state for so many years through the tourism board, we know how difficult those June events are as far as timing and being able to get reimbursed, because our cutoff date's also on the 30th, and we have something that we need to do June 15th. It's difficult.
And even worse than that's fireworks, which is right.
It's right, and that's
bounces
right
on
on
the
July
deadline.
1st, but at least you're in our next fiscal year, so you can do it after the fact instead of, whatever. But it's just a point I wanted to make to my fellow commissioners, that I think the timing of your event creates a difficulty too. Thank you.
Correct.
And Commissioner Clark, to that point, if the event is in June, one would think that if you're trying to make that event as an attraction to bring people into the community, you would start advertising that event certainly early May. And then if you work with your media company to get a tear sheet, that could work. But
It
it's
could.
tight.
It's
It is tight. Also, I had just mentioned that maybe for next year, on the bottom it says funded in part by City of Truth or Consequences lodger's tax. Maybe we might want to revisit our lodger's tax and what is required, and maybe have something like funded in part by the City of Truth or Consequences, a New Mexico True Hot Springs community, or something like that, which will give us a little bit.
Well, if they
of
put True on it, then they open up for something else, yeah.
So, all right, so again, it would be $700 as per the award to the Friends organization. Would someone like to make a motion of forgiveness?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so Commissioner Clark is making a motion to approve $700 payment on the CD Media LLC invoice number 678. I have a motion by Commissioner Clark.
I second that motion.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Next item is transfer agreement with Santa Fe Animal Shelter, Truth or Consequences. I guess the Chief and Lieutenant Baker will be making this presentation.
Good morning, Commission, Mayor. We have agreement set up with, proposed agreement set up with Santa Fe Animal Shelter. Basically what they encourage is the adoption of animals, and they have a big, strong program going on up there. And what they do is they take healthy animals from shelters like the one that we have, that we get overfull with, but they take healthy cats and dogs that they want to adopt. The agreement was reviewed by our attorney, John Appel, and he didn't see any problems with it. Furthermore, the organization in Santa Fe is willing to drive down here and pick up these animals. It'd be a rare occasion that we would have to take any out ourselves. So it's a free service, and I think we should take advantage of it. I'll let Lieutenant Baker, who's a little more familiar with this, give her spiel.
Good morning, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner, City Manager. So I'm actually really excited about this. They actually reached out to us. They have their own adoption augment program already in place over there, and apparently it's pretty good. And Mr. Appel even in our email said that he actually has adopted animals from the Santa Fe Animal Shelter, which were really good. There's some stuff in there that requires medical criteria for us to make sure the animals are in healthy and good condition, which any animals that we feel are sick or have any veterinarian needs, we have partnered with Doc Dawkins, and we take them over there and she feeds them, and we take care of any medical conditions, of course, they need or medicine. What's really exciting about this is they're not charging us a fee. They're not wanting any kind of contract. You know, if anything happens to where it doesn't work out with us, we can just terminate it at any time. You know, it's not any kind of like in-place contact, just saying that, you know, we have permission to do this. They're city commission, city manager, and that, you know, they have even said that they won't even charge us any kind of mileage. They're completely coming down here on their own, going to pick up our healthy animals, and take them back over there to their adoption program. And it's mainly to help with the population control as well. So like we've received a lot of kittens and stuff in right now, and they take adult cats as well, but they won't take pit bulls or chihuahuas. So we'll have those, which we don't have a lot of those right now. We have some puppies and some older dogs. I think that we should get into the program. That would be really beneficial for them. As you know, it's harder to adopt out the older dogs at sometimes, but we really like to give our animals the opportunity, you know, to be transferred somewhere else. Like I said, we're not euthanizing any of our adoptable animals at all. We have not. But it does help with that problem, and it helps with overcrowding as well. We have moved in new kennels, some more into our intake room to help with any new animals we get in. I know Ms. Lombardo stated about the animals being outside. I can assure you, you can go to the shelter. We don't have any animals that are outside 100% of the time. They have their in and out through their dog walk and their run. If we do get overcrowded, we brought in those extra kennels so they wouldn't be out there in the heat. We haven't had a rain, so that kind of defeats that purpose. But if any of you would like to come down and look at the animal shelter and see how we're running it, I welcome you to come look and see. But I'm really excited about this transfer agreement with Santa Fe, especially since they're so willing to come down here, and they reached out to us to come get the animals. And I stand for any questions.
Excellent, thank you. Questions?
I just think it's adorable that Lieutenant Baker's trying to talk us into this.
And it's free, too. So I do
Nice
have-
job, Lieutenant.
I do have a question. On the city's website, do we have a special page for the animal shelter and have pictures of the adoptable animals up there that maybe people in Santa Fe could come and take a look and say, oh, I love that cutie pie, go down and get it for me?
So we have our TRC Animal Shelter Facebook page. that we put together, have pictures of all the animals up for adoptions. We have Pets of the Week. And we also partnered with Miss Canton. It was actually her idea. We weren't able to set that up this meeting, but next meeting for sure. We're going to have 3 pictures of 3 adoptable animals each meeting, so the people coming in with their information, and it's just going to kind of be a slideshow, and it shows the animals and their information and kind of their personality stuff. So we weren't able to set this up this meeting. We really wanted to, but I know Sabrina gets really busy down there, so I'm going to take the helm on that and get those pictures and information to Miss Canton. But that's another idea we came up with, and it was actually her idea. She shot that out there as an offer for us to help us with that. And so we have that, and then we're also going to be having our ads in the paper as well. I'm sure I can probably get with Santa Fe and see if they have their own page, and we can send pictures from our animals to them so the people from Santa Fe can see what we have to offer as well.
Excellent.
We can put that on the website also.
Yeah. Great idea. I love it. So that would be kind of when people come in at 8:45, 10:09, there would be a slideshow of adoptable, lovable
Yes.
pets.
Yes, sir.
How about adoptable, lovable commissioners? For adoption, all that. Great idea, great idea. So this was just discussion. All right, so any further questions about the agreement, the wonderful offer from Santa Fe? If not, I will stand for a motion.
Mayor Green, I'd like to move that we authorize the city to enter into an agreement with the Santa Fe Animal Shelter for the adoption of animals as presented by Chief Apodaca.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Hessler, second by Commissioner Baca. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carries unanimously, and thank you for the work you guys do.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Speaking for the animals, we'll speak for the animals, those cute kittens. Last item, new business discussion action, marketing TRC and surrounding area for Virgin Galactic. Just to give you a heads up on where we are, as you've been following the papers and the press releases, the testing has been going really well out in Mojave, and they will be moving their forces to New Mexico, southern New Mexico. About 4 months ago, we delivered 40 relocation packages to Virgin Galactic's office in Las Cruces, which was very, very warmly received. We've been in contact and communication with Virgin Galactic on a regular basis now. And it turns out that we have heard that what Las Cruces is doing, and that's going to be obviously our major competitor, they have made memory sticks that they've sent to all 86 families and some of the supply chain that is coming east with Virgin Galactic. They also will probably have representatives of the Chamber of Commerce go out to Mojave. I've been working with the boots on the ground here in Las Cruces because this past commission authorized Commissioner Clark and myself to take kind of the lead on that. So my last email to the person who we're dealing with is I have offered, gave the person additional information on how you access information about TRC, how you navigate our website, which was warmly received. But I think a personal visit, you can't beat it. So I am going to ask my fellow commissioners to authorize myself and/or Manager Fuentes to go out, if we are invited, and the invite seems to be getting closer and closer, to fly to Bakersfield, rent a car, drive down to Mojave, and make the presentation in front of 86 families. We would probably be, or I would probably leave on a Monday or a Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever it is, make the presentation the next day, see if I could get a flight back that evening. The flights are 300, right now the flight to Bakersfield is $380 through Phoenix. American Airlines costs an overnight hotel, motel, and the rental of a car. We cannot compete with Las Cruces dollar for dollar, and that's obvious. And living in a rural, wonderful community with the assets we have is not going to be for everybody. But their average salary is $60,000. And if we can kick off
10%, 10 families, 8 to 10 families that come in here, what a huge input of new energy, of new dollars, and I personally think, also I met with Doug Whitehead, who is second chair, I guess, of the school board, and that's where I'm a little bit weak on, because I've never had a child in school here in TRC, and they're getting me all sorts of information, such as graduation rates in different colleges, where our graduates go, how many freshmen enter and how many seniors graduate, all the information from the school that I'm quite sure will be questions asked, and whoever is out there representing the city of TRC should have the answers. Doesn't make sense to go that far and say, well, I don't know, I'll get back to you. You can't know everything, but I think you can know the basics. So I'm waiting for Mr. Whitehead to get back to me. He's meeting with the new superintendent, and he will be getting back to me with information, so I will have that at the ready. I think if we do nothing, we will get nothing. There is an expression, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're probably on the menu. And I'm not going to allow TRC and this commission and this staff to be on the menu. We at least got to give it our best shot to try to attract new people. We have an abundance of houses. Oh, my Lord.
Look at that.
That's who I think
Look
it
at
is.
that.
I am so honored you came in during my presentation to hear this. Chief O'Leary, welcome,
Did you
sir.
know this was
Welcome,
going to happen?
welcome. So that's basically where we're at. I mean, I can't guarantee it's going to happen, but the last email I got from the contact, which I think I forwarded to everyone, was that we will try and make it happen. There's a short window of opportunity I think we have to sell our community, the surrounding communities, the area, and I think we'd be very, very, very foolish to do nothing and let Las Cruces get it all.
I have a comment, of course.
Commissioner Clark.
One,
95 decibels as I speak.
It's like having Lieutenant Baker trying to talk us into sending dogs to Santa Fe. But I do want to just make one comment to you before you leave.
Yeah.
The valedictorian of my daughter's year went into aerospace and now has one of the really good paying job within Sandia Labs.
Sweet.
That's our graduate from our high school.
See, that's the type of little vignette stories I would love once we know. I mean, and the reason I am doing this now is that I don't want to have to call a special meeting if our contact, by the way, the contact that we are dealing with, and I think you all know, the person's name is second in command, and their boss is coming to TRC, and I have offered to meet with them and to do them a familiarization tour, not only of our town, but also of the lake, of the golf course, of our ghost towns, because this is where you're going to live. This is where you're going to earn your living, and you need to know the assets that we have. So I think that we can knock the socks off of Las Cruces by the type of assets we have. There's certain people that will want to move to Las Cruces. By the way, they've started construction already. It's still a dirt road. We were down on Las Cruces yesterday, so I thought it was dust devils galore, but it's just the dust of the vehicles traveling on it. But I think given the opportunity, and if they want us to be out there, that means that they want us to be successful as a successful partner with Virgin Galactic and their employees. And I think we should be prepared to take advantage of the offer if and when it comes, that we can get out of here in a day or 2 days and go out there and do our thing. That's my pitch. And I'll bring some free kittens. So what I'm asking for is the authority for either myself and Manager Fuentes to take advantage of what we hope will be a gracious offer and a generous offer from Virgin Galactic to pitch our community and our county. I don't think it would be probably more than $700 for one person or something like that. Since we do not have economic development organizations anymore, there's no one to fight our battles but us. And I think it's cheaper twice the price, frankly. That's my pitch.
I will stand for questions, comments, concerns, or if nothing, then
I'll make a motion that we make allowances to send our mayor and/or city manager to the Virgin Galactic Forum as presented by Mayor Green.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Fox, second by Commissioner Baca. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much for your faith in Manager Fuentes and myself. And we can't guarantee anything, but I guarantee you we'll make you proud. Thank you. The next item.
Mayor, I'm
is-
sorry, may we take a break?
Yes. You want to take a break?
Yes, for just a couple minutes.
Because we're going actually into reports, but you want to break right now?
Please.
Okay, sure, absolutely. Right. We will break right now.
I can't believe it, I held out longer than the young guy.
Yeah.
It won't be hard to do, I know.
See you.
Okay.
For a couple minute break. We are on now, Jay, report, city manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just wanted to kind of brief the commission real quick. In regards to the downtown project, you will see a company, Wilson & Company, has been helping us kind of do assess our downtown roads with some of the issues, concerns that we have. We are doing a geotest on the soil to make sure what we're dealing with, what we're going to get into. Project related to that is we are having a Smithco come in and replace that section of sewer line right in front of the utility office. So they'll be working on that hopefully today, and the problem with that, it was just right off the curb. So once that line is replaced, then our street department will go in and replace the curb and sidewalk in that area. The roundabout meetings, there is the DOT roundabout meeting coming up at the high school cafeteria on June 20th at 5 p.m. For those folks that are interested in attending, or the commission, I believe the clerk's office will be posting or has posted a potential quorum notice. We also have another meeting coming up with the South Central Council of Government working with DOT and the Wilson & Company on a proposed interchange on exit 79. This always is a great opportunity. I'm not sure exactly the details of what they're proposing, but it does provide hopefully an opportunity to lobby or advocate for an interchange that would allow for economic development off that interchange, such as a truck stop, such as, something better than what you see in, if you travel to Santa Fe, I believe, I don't know if it's open already, but there's that Flying J on Los Lunas or Belen. Is it open? And I, years back, there was talk about putting one in our region. They were able to do that, and obviously that doesn't mean that we can't have one in our region, but that interchange just does not lend itself very well to something like that. So anyway, so that meeting is coming up at the Richard Cooper Training Center, June 25th at Elephant Beach State Park, 101 Highway from 10:30 to 1 p.m. So that's, we did get notice back from the DOT regarding our application for the MAP grant for 3rd Street. For planning, design, construction of that road. Unfortunately, we did not make it to the next phase of the application process. They only had available $8.6 million, and they received a total request of $24 million. So there was kind of it. So, but at least we got familiar with the grant process, and we'll try it again next year for that same funding source. And finally, I did get an email there. I did see it. Unfortunately, I did not have Mr. Dornbusch's number, so I will give him a call. In regards, he had a concern, Mr. Dornbusch, about the water tank. In the summer months, obviously, people are using a lot more water. So we don't have any, aside from the issue of one of the wells, I did speak to Jesus well 7, well 7 is scheduled to be rehabbed. But Jesus did not indicate that there was any major issues. It's just the typical people are using more in the hot summer, so which may trigger water conservation, which may trigger, kind of more awareness to the public of, kind of limiting the water consumption and water use. But we'll have more information on that, Mayor, and definitely will be something that we'll talk to the POAB about.
Okay.
And that's the last thing on my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Attorney Rubin, I have your report, Mayor Pro Tem.
I don't have a report, but I do want to follow up on what Manager Fuentes said about the water consumption. I also want to make sure that if we're going to, conserve water, that we watch the water leaks, because sometimes around town, there's these small trickles. I know there was a small trickle on Elm, off of Riverside for almost a week, before they actually got to it. It wasn't a lot, but I don't know what the water containment under the ground was. And so we want to avoid losing water at all possibility if, when we're going to conserve.
No response.
Commissioner Park.
Just one thing, I think I'm leaving town next week, and I'll be gone throughout July. So just as a heads up, I'll be trying to call into the meetings, so I'll let you know if I can.
Thank you. Commissioner Baca? I have 3. Follow up on Mayor Pro Tem. We left town on Wednesday, and in the morning, I noticed that there was a leak between 7th and 8th on our side of town. And I phoned it in, and when I came back, what was interesting, it had been all blocked out. There was, it looks like they have to, I guess, and Manager Fuentes, correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like before they start to dig up a street, they call the gas company. And the gas company comes over and does some testing to make sure we don't hit the gas line. So I think that might be a little bit of the delay, because when we came by it last night after walking our dog, I stopped and I said, Paula, on her side of the car, what's all that chalk down there on the big block out that said, okay, no gas line, and it was signed off by NM Gas, by the New Mexico Gas Company. So I guess that I agree with you 1,000%, but this process, and maybe we can reach out to the gas company and tell them that, please put us up front because we're losing water. But you got to check to make sure there's no gas pipe on the area before we start digging. So the other thing is, Linda DiMarino about 3 months ago had talked about an idea on how to probably solve the problem at Foch and Broadway. And then we heard Hans Townsend basically say the same thing. I've spoken to Mr. Townsend. He's sending us an email. And that actually, I'm the vice chair of the South Central Regional Transportation Planning Organization. So this Friday at 11 o'clock, we have our meeting in Village in Williamsburg. I will be bringing that up to see what their reaction is. It's a small fix, but boy, is that miserable. We have to keep on inching out in the middle. You're in the middle of Main Street to see what's coming at you. So I will take care of that. The other thing, which does not do my heart good, is I drive around town, and probably as all my fellow commissioners drive around town, just look at the money that is being thrown out in our polycarts. It makes you want to cry. I just got back from visiting a city in California. San Jose is a city of 1 million people. It has the highest per capita income in the country, and their recycling rate is 71% diversion. And these are people who have money that it wouldn't cost them, it means nothing to them to have a $5 increase in a garbage rate. To us, we'd be drawn in quarters. So again, cardboard, aluminum, paper. I realize that if we did what other communities do, which is single stream it, we're going to get nothing for it. Right now, we're trying to divert and save those trail loads, those costs down there. And, if we have our financial issues
and we're only at about 11%, and a wealthy city of 1 million plus people is at 71%. We got to do better. And we don't know what's going to happen in November, who's going to be at the helm in this state. We don't know what they're going to look kindly on small city assistance, what they're going to do. Correct me if I'm wrong, Manager Fuentes, isn't the hold harmless going down every year? And in 15 years, there is going to be no more hold harmless?
Well, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, the hold harmless right now is for those entities over 10,000.
Right.
But that is being reduced, but they also implemented the GRT.
Right.
They're the ones being impacted. Right now, the smaller entities are still getting their hold harmless.
Right.
But there's no guarantee that they won't also be impacted down the road.
Right. And our hold harmless at one time was 600 and some odd thousand. The last time I saw the check, it was 131,000. So how do you make up $500,000 in a general fund? It's kind of tough. One way we can do it is by being good stewards and recycle. We can take that found money and put it and use it for infrastructure improvements, et cetera, That's all I have. I will need a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we go into executive session under K1, threatened or pending litigation, Cloverleaf Trust Organization application to appropriate water from the Hot Springs Basin State Engineer File Number HS01131 pursuant to 1015-1H7.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second. Second by Commissioner Heschler. Then we have roll call, please.
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead?
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Eschler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
I just recuse myself. Thank you.
Honorable Paul Baca?
Here.
Okay, we will wait till we clear the hall, as they say.
We're going to leave our digital recorders.
Right now.
Disclaimer and then possibly a motion. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move that, or I stipulate that in executive session under K1, threatened or pending litigation, Cloverleaf Trust Organization application to approve water from the Hot Springs Basin State Engineer File Number HS01131 pursuant to 1015-1H. 7 was discussed and no action was taken. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we authorize our attorney that represents us to proceed with our protest.
Okay, Jack, you
In accordance with our June 6, June 6, 2018 letter.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion to proceed as according to the June 6, 2018 letter. I need a second. I have a second by Commissioner Heschler. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carries unanimously.
I move we adjourn.
I think you are very good at moving that. June 27th. Next meeting, see you all, hopefully we'll see you before then. I'm sorry. Sorry, my wife's stepping on people's lines.
No.
Oh, I'm listening to Jay, okay.
Okay, everybody.
Thank you.
I'll give you